never know what will happen at Worlds.
The stage is set, the curtain is drawn.
没人能够预见会是这种情况。
This is the game people want to see.
新的王者诞生了
Kaboom! They lit the fuse.
你看到了吗
They're gonna win. This is it.
Welcome everyone to Worlds Countdown. For the first time in 3 years, the LCK will have a team in the World Finals. And now it is time to see which LPL representative will defend the title, as Top Esports and Suning have arrived at the next stop on their Worlds run. I'm Shox, joined by Kadril and Frosk. We're all decked out for the second semi-final. And as said, the LCK is back in the finals because yesterday, Damwon enacted a revenge that was a year in the making as they took down G2 Esports to earn their spot in those finals. And listen, it was super, super convincing from the side of Damwon. If a dancing Shelly didn't convince you, I don't know what will.
It was a bop, it was a shellacking, it was an absolute blasting there against G2. The only game that looked competitive was maybe Game 2. Game 1, I feel like, ended at 15 minutes. Game 4 literally ended at 18 minutes, the fastest game in World's history. Damwon had a statement to prove, and like, message received. I got it, guys. You were angry, you got your revenge. Welcome.
Yeah, and the fact they broke the world record for fastest Worlds games kind of summarizes it. I think G2 threw a lot of things at them with the Lucian flex, trying to get a better mid matchup and stuff like this. And I just felt like G2 wasn't really there with the things that they prepared. I mean, Cap's getting solo killed on the side STF matchup. I didn't feel like there was much impact from Mickey in some of these games. I think they dropped the ball around the jungle bot area, and they were just kind of drafting losing bot lane matchups, which I didn't really like too much.
And I think, oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I think the coolest thing for Damwon fans is the evolution that the team has made all year. You know, in spring, they didn't look as convincing. Like when they first made their debut, everyone was really hyped. And then doesn't really promise. They kind of felt the last hurdle dropping the quarterfinal. Spring, still a little bit whatever. Summer, they start to peak. And then this was like the most important, highest prestige game that they've ever gotten to play. And now they go to finals. So it's been a crazy ride watching this team kind of cement themselves into the true diamond that everyone saw that they could be.
Yeah, and I think the flexibility they've shown is incredible. I mean, they're playing, you've got Nuguri who can play tanks. He's been playing Oran, he can play carries, he can play Lulu top. Then you've got the mid lane Showmaker who's just playing utility mids, carry mids, and they have so much flexibility around the jungle with Engage from Canyon on things like the Hecarim, even carry junglers, whatever you need, they can just do it.
And I love that they've answered so many questions on so many levels because there wasn't so much to take away from the DRX Best of 5 because we'd seen that a couple of times. And now they show everything that they've learned in the last year and really roll over G2 in both the draft individual play as well as the team fights, which honestly there were barely any because they always got the advantage and they absolutely played it out perfectly.
And now it's the final hurdle. But the thing is that Damwon really came to fruition in the era where there was no audience. You know, that's when they really rose, and they were always kind of helmed as like scrim gods, like they were destroying Fnatic and Invictus Gaming behind the scenes when it was IG versus Fnatic in the finals, and people always knew that they were on the horizon. Now, their last test will be a world final in front of an audience. And so it's kind of like that final push to cement them as this new superpower.
And you gotta love the storyline altogether on LPL soil, trying to take the crown back to the LCK after 3 years of not being there. And Damwon top was kind of the final that was promised, I would say, right? Yep. So top now has to hold up their side of the bargain.
I have one last thing. It's a fun fact. Do you guys know the last time that an LCK team lost when they went to the finals?
Never?
Was it against an LCK team?
No, it was the first time that the LCK ever got to participate, Azuba Frost versus TPA. That is the only time that an LCK team, when they make it to a world final, has ever lost. Yes, they've beaten other LCK teams, but if they make it, they win.
Well, we'll see next week. And when you're pushing the Nexus to close out the series, some players may hold their ultimates for one last team fight, but then there are those who really want to see Shelly dancing and say, I'm helping, brought to you by State Farm. Why do we have to talk about this again? But no, just kidding. In Game 4, Canyon makes sure Damwon can get every charge possible when closing in on the series win. Why not add a little bit of insult to injury?
And it's hilarious because Dracos is doing his, like, we didn't expect the game to end here. Obviously, neither did she too. He's doing his crazy win call, like building it up. And I'm just watching the Kindred ultimate be placed on Shelly to allow her to get like 3 charges off with no HP, and it was just wild. I was like, oh my god, they're destroying them.
It's completely legal. Everyone's hearts are shattering as I think, wait, can they end? I think they're going to end. Oh, they ended. Oh, it's over.
Yeah, and I also really loved what kind of popped off on social media from the teams as well as in interviews. And I love that in this year, we've really seen the LPL and the LCK, also with like the English branded Twitter accounts and all that, kind of returning the favor in terms of banter and in terms of, you know, the shots that are thrown. And I think Damwon had like so many things yesterday. They had Shelly dancing at the Nexus. They
Emotes.
They spammed the FPX and IG emotes to caps. They also had the reenactment of the victory celebration that G2 did against Gen G last week, and it was just so perfect. And I think we just have to celebrate the fact that this is happening and we're all throwing shots and we're all catching shots. And if you dish it out, you have to be able to take it.
Yeah, they're embracing the memes, and G2 were the ones who kind of brought it to the world stage, right? Just throwing the memes, emoting, like even in the voice comms, you can hear them laughing and trolling. And now Damwon, I like the fact they've embraced it and makes it more fun to watch. And I just think that, most teams should start adopting this.
I like it too. The total package. And heading into the semifinals, aside from the memes and the great level of play from Damwon, we're also curious about how the meta would shift. And what was very interesting in Damwon G2 yesterday was that heavy focus on support picks, especially the Leona, really taking priority in that series.
Yeah, I think there was 3 main support picks for me. There was Leona, Braum, and Pantheon. The Pantheon on Mickey's hands didn't look very successful, but the Braum, Halo Blades, but Leona's the one I want to talk about. I think this champ just provides so much to your team, and just the way the support role works, it just slots in so well. Yes, you've got things like the Nautilus, but Leona, super good engaged, can get the push, can win 2v2s, is pretty safe in most cases, the blind pick, unless Caitlyn's picked. And just in general, if you can unlock the support role to be able to roam with Leona towards mid, get the engages in 2v2s, she always can pull the trigger, and she's just so flexible.
Yeah, it's that setup that's kind of the big cementing factor, as long as all the other, dominant 2v2 that you were pointing out, Kadril, but the fact that you have these carry junglers that don't necessarily have inbuilt hard CC, and when you do pair them with Leona, she holds them, they punch, and that's how you get these guys to like really pop off. I will say though that the other support pick that didn't see any of playtime but was banned almost every single game, or every game, I'd have to go back and check, was Tom Kench. And he can obviously throw a massive wrench in Leona's plans, and as well as a lot of pick compositions plans.
Yeah, I think Tom Kench is a pretty good answer to Leona. Obviously, you can use a disengage, and I just think that when Leona can roam, it's basically like an AD carry showdown in the bot lane. I think you saw that yesterday with Perks, and there was just so much 1v1s and dives going on. And maybe Perks misplayed the dives here and there, but the 1v1s didn't go too much in his favor. But yeah, Leona, it just provides so much engaged CC, and that's what you need when you play a carry jungler.
And it's all about also kind of, as you say, connecting the singular picks, for instance, in the bottom lane to that jungle, which has been so impressive. And Damwon as a whole just came up with really good ideas against things that they knew would be picked on the other side. The Caitlyn was also a great example out of that game.
Yeah, the red side was winning most games. Red side always got got Leona, most of the games as well. And I think that when Damwon went back to the blue side in game 4 and G2 was on the red, they kind of expected the Leona coming in on 4, because the 4-pick Leona was what was happening in most of these games. And as you can see in the draft here, what they did to answer this question was, well, if we early pick a Caitlyn, when Ashe and Jhin are banned, they won't really have an answer for it. You have things like the Senna, the Ezreal, even the Jinx is a good answer to Caitlyn, but the fact that they blind pick the Caitlyn, they leave up Morgana, and if they were to ban out the Morgana, they would ban Leona themselves. And then G2 can't pick Leona on 4, because if they get against Caitlyn Morgana, it's basically unlaneable.
Yeah, it was always prioritizing that stronger 2v2, and it just speaks to the strength of Damwon that there was so much versatility and flexibility in every single position. The Caitlyn pick to subvert the support pick or play mind games there, the fact that the Hecarim came out from Canyon, that Nagari can play, the tanks, he can play the carries, maybe not the Fiora as well, that was a bit of a hit.
Maybe next time.
Maybe get him next time, but it just, there's such a complete package, and I think that's why they're one of the tournament favorites still.
Yeah, and I just think that if you look at yesterday's series, I think bot prio, winning bot, pushing bot is just so important.
And will we see the same thing today? We have Suning versus Top Esports. We're going to get deeper into it after the break. But in terms of draft priority, is there going to be a similar emphasis on that bot lane, Frost, you think?
I mean, the rules will be the same, and that's what Kadril just talked about, bot prio and how important that is to how it feeds into the jungle meta, because junglers are so important and the jungle pool is very specific. But I do think that there will be slightly different champion priority because of the players piloting the champions. Things like Bard will be a much higher priority. Things like the Nidalee, even though she was banned all the time, might slip through. Kindred, I mean, the list goes on and on because of the specific players that we have on the Rift.
And it's because it's a carry jungle meta. If you have bot prio, the support can roam first, he can help the jungle, and if the jungle gets ahead, he can help the mid lane and the solo lane. So just looking at these key picks, I mean, if you look at the Worlds meta overall, when we came into Worlds, we were thinking of maybe we'll see some Set, Volibear, those champs got nerfed, and now I think these 4 champs have kind of cemented themselves as the strongest 4 carry junglers. Yes, you have the Lilia as well, but it seems to have fallen off a little bit in Prio, and I think Hecarim's just a good answer if they do pick something like the Graves. And then you've got the Kindred, which is more of sort of a comfort pick for people who need to answer the Graves if Nidalee's down or Lilia's down, because AP junglers are naturally the counter to Graves. So Kindred's just such a good response, especially if teams have like these dive potential comps.
I really want to see, because both of these junglers have that signature pick of the Lee Sin, I would love to see someone lock in the Kindred and someone try to take the Lee Sin to kick her off the Lamb's Respite and like tag her with the Q and be like, okay, like farm it up, let's go.
Yes, we're gonna see it. We're gonna see it today, hopefully, right? Do you want anything to add? I thought you.
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
Just chilling, vibing.
Just making sure, you know. And turning into today's series, we do have a Red Bull top play that made a Suning rookie famous with what is now known as the Huan Fang. Check it out.
Bambi's out of the picture once more. Yagao is here, but 1 versus 3 is not where Galio needs to find himself. Justice Punch away, keeps alive yet again. Ben trying to chase this up, but where is that?
What?
It's Jin!
He's in the
enemy base! Behind the curtains with the curtain call! Everybody is done, man. Huan Feng is legendary.
I don't know if it is really already dubbed the Huan Fang, or is that just something that we're trying to coin, but I think it's worth. And that's what I love about Worlds and about international tournaments and moments like these. This now is like in the arsenal of the big plays, you know, and hopefully we'll see someone try to recreate it and maybe horribly fail as well, because that would be entertaining.
That was like a smeb all over again. Like that one will go down in the history books as the time that the Jin ended up in the enemy base.
Yeah, it reminds me of that scene from Awaken, the music video, you know, with the Jin just ready to pull out the ult. It looks so good.
Oh, you're
with
right.
With the stars and stuff. Oh my god.
It's perfect. Maybe he was channeling that. Great stuff from there. So hopefully we'll see a lot of outplays of that sort today, because today's matchup between Top Esports and Suning, that does add to the monumental chapter of League of Legends that the LPL has carved out for itself. In the last 3 years, we have seen absolute domination and 2 world championships, Frosk, and it was a long time coming.
Yeah, that's kind of been like the soft theme, I think, of every time I talk about the LPL teams at Worlds, just because it's organizations that people weren't used to hearing about. You know, Top, Suning, JDG, most people had never seen these guys. It's not the Invictus Gamings, the FPXs, the RNGs, the EDGs, but it does start with IG. And I know that like European fans have mixed feelings about this. Yeah, it hurts. Invictus Gaming fans have really mixed feelings about this. This team, they never won. They never won Shocks. They didn't win for the longest time. They're one of the oldest organizations in the LPL. I know, right? And then when they finally did, they basically changed League of Legends. They changed the world. They said that it's an arms race now. If you want to actually be competitive, you have to have superstars in every single role. A team like Invictus Gaming and G2 don't exist without this moment. And that has bled over into Top and Suning. You know, now it's these very powerful rookies, 369, Ben, Huangfeng, Jackie Love, who literally came from IG, is now on top. This is the footsteps that IG has built that these new younger teams are walking into.
And I love this as kind of contextualization of now we're dealing with a League of Legends esport that has been
10 years.
10 years going strong, and all these different like eras are popping up. And we're now in the LPL era, and I love the way you put that the way teams win games internationally, the way teams win a world championship was changed after that IG victory, and because of what the LPL has shown in the last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at historically, the LCK was kind of like when they played against LPL teams, or sometimes at times EU teams, it was kind of like controlling the beast. Keep it in its cage, make sure we don't fight too much, just out clean them with macro, use brain over bronze. And now the beast's been unleashed in the last 3 years. I think that the IG showed that, and I think you can see it in the champions they're playing, right? They're not playing to scale too much. They're just playing for fights, and you can see throughout their drafts, throughout the last couple of years in the finals and stuff, you have like the IG with Kayle and Kai'Sa with diving in with the Kayle ult for the AoE. Then you've got FPX with like the Nautilus mid, the Malphite mid, these huge teamfight wombo combos. So I just think that LCK has been able to embrace it over the last couple of years, and they've slowly grown into this more aggressive playstyle.
Yeah, and I think that's true with Dom1. And, you know, it's turning the page on 10 years, you know, finally deciding that the next generation of talent is what's going to lead you. You know, we still have the G2s and the Fnatics, and you do start to have those exciting rookies, the Mad Lions, the Rogues, things like this. Rookies coming into the LCS, but for the LPL, they've truly turned that page. And I think that's what's so incredible about today's series is the trajectory that these rookies or these new fresh faces will take. You know, will Jackie Love lead a very young team to his second world championship? Or will Suning, which have so many first-timers, find their trajectory in the most important stage in the biggest spotlight?
Yeah, it is wonderful to see, and that's one of the things that makes not just the semifinal, but also the LCK LPL matchup in the finals so exciting. Thank you for laying that all out for us, Frost. We are going to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll tell the story of the old teammates clashing on the Rift as Karsa and Sword Art's paths cross once again.
Legends never die when the world is calling you. Can you hear them screaming out your name? Legends never die, they become a part of you. Every time you bleed for reaching greatness, relentless, you survive. They never lose hope when everything's cold and the fighting's near. It's deep in their bones, they'll ride into smoke when the fire is fierce. No, pick yourself up, 'cause legends never die. When the world
打职业打到现在，一直以来的梦想都只有一个，就是想拿到世界冠军，想要拥有自己的皮肤。就是如果打败了宋宁，然后进入了总决赛，这意味着就是我离我的梦想又跨进了一大步吧，就是已经到了我触手可及的地方了吧。
Fnatic want to make it to semifinals. The blast code is available. Hop forward.
Karsa is going absolute god mode to pull this game back.
之前我跟克尔上手很多次吧，就是我也想学他的东西，然后他也想学我东西吧。我打他的时候，他都是一下而稳吧。现在肯定是不一样的。
One more arrow in his back. SOFM just makes it look free.
我觉得我们上次面对苏宁，可能那时候他们还没有现在这么强，就他们团队协作还没有现在这么好。我们打的时候可能还要更加注意。
Top Esports will have some numbers. Blocked down by the solo. Nemesis running for his life, as so is Selfbait. He's already used the Lamb's respite. Knights, Zoe is terrifying. When you see the damage he's putting down, they're gonna get melted.
说实话是没有想过会在半决赛遇到斯沃尔的。一直以来我们打这些的梦想都是一起放在世界冠军上嘛，想不到我们见面还是在，就是我们两个还是要在互相厮杀的情况下。
Defensive flash away to chase the resonating strike. Self-made packing.
这次我也会把握好机会，然后也给你看一下，就是你离开闪亮之后，我也有一些成长了，然后这次会打赢你。
Sword Art shows up. Here's some of that playmaking I'm talking about.
That was beautiful.
因为我们只有一边能踏上总决赛的舞台，然后也希望踏上去那个人能够完成我们两个一直来的梦想吧。
It is really the new era of LPL players here, and they are a force to be reckoned with.
I love that video so much. I think it's the 5th time I've seen it, and I'm still getting goosebumps. And there is so much to talk about here in the Return of Worlds Countdown. I'm joined also by a special guest, Clement Chu, of course, caster for the LPL. And Clement, it's so great to see you. I really wanted to ask you about the two gentlemen that we saw here in that epic last shot, Karsa and Sword Art, and about their history and about how important it is that they meet here in the semifinals. So maybe let's start off for people who may not know, what is the history between them when it comes to the Flash Wolves?
Sure, Shocks. When Maple and Sword Art first burst onto the scene in Season 3, they were seen as kind of upstarts that were, usurping the TPA members that were still active. People didn't really know if they would last or not, and the Flash Wolves that we know now really came together in Season 5 when they finally found Karsa. That year, they shocked the world by taking out the Coup Tigers in their own group. And starting from 2016, Karsa and Sword Art absolutely won everything for 4 splits onwards until after a couple of unsatisfying Worlds run, Karsa decided to leave for RNG in 2018. So that's how it started.
Yeah, that's such a big story overall, an absolute domination back then with the Flash Wolves and in the LMS. Before we get to kind of the next chapter, what can you tell me about the relationship that these two have off the Rift, kind of the emotional connection and the shared goals for that World Championship?
The Flash Wolves have always touted themselves as being more than teammates. They called themselves family. They were very, very close-knit, and you could tell that when they got off the stage, Karsa would actually hold hands with the rest of their players. Now, in-game, these two guys were also the main shot callers for their teams, Karsa for the early game objectives and Sword Art for the later game decision-making. So these two guys were with the same voice, with the same mind, and in-game they even had the same song that they would sing together when the pressure was on, called On Top of the World. Now, it's really sad to say this, but by the end of today, only one of them will be heading to the summit alone.
Yeah, indeed. I had no idea about the song, for instance, and all those details. That is so awesome. But as you say, they parted ways and each went on that quest for the World Championship on their own. Tell me about the post-Flash Wolves era for both sides, for Karsa and Sword Art.
It's really hard to overstate, overstate how impactful these Flash Wolves members have been. And I actually look at the coaching staff, which have been criminally underrated. You know, the coach Warhorse on Flash Wolves just won Worlds last year with FBX. And right now, the Suning's coach was also a former Flash Wolves coach in Fluidwin, who is set to be, at the very least, a semi-finalist coach. Now, when Karsa went to RNG, he brought Uzi his first domestic and international title. And if you look at Sword Art, he brought an 11th place Suning team, showed the world Hwanfeng, and now they're a top 4 team in the world overall. Also, his understudy in Shaoxi was nominated the Rookie of the Split in the LPL. So, you know, the Flash Wolves have been massively inspirational, not only for former LMS fans, but I think for PCS fans today, because they really prove if you're elite in this region, you're not a big fish in a small pond. You actually have what it takes to take on the world.
Wow, I love the way you are putting this, Clement. There is so much history in more than just Karsa and Sword Art, but they are a big part of it, of course, in the matchup today. So tell me, how do you think things are going to play out, and who will eventually make it to the final over the other?
Ooh, unfortunately, we have seen this play out before. Now, Suning and Top Esports did face each other in the semifinals, and it was a 3-0 for Top Esports. If you add in the regular season, it's actually a 5-0 for Top Esports. They have proven to be the more active team early game and also the better team fighters. Now, I think what's interesting about the matchup is you heard Kadril and FrostCurrent talk about a carry jungler matchup, but this actually is reversed between Suning and Top Esports. Karsa was the dominant jungler, but he was actually behind 25 CS on average against SOFM throughout the series. However, he was far more dominant because he was able to gank a lot for his lanes and make sure that 369 always landed on the right foot in those very volatile top lane carry matchups. And when it came to the team fights, I think it also is a stylistic mismatch in favor of Top Esports. Suning is a team that relies on a lot of very difficult to execute playmaking from Sword Art and SOFM, and they're a pick-oriented team. But unfortunately, Top Esports, they're masters at counter-engaging. You think about how they won against DRX and how they won against Fnatic. They basically danced away from Engage's mid lane and turned those fights on their head. Now, if I was a Suning optimistic, I would say there's 2 points I would look at. Number one, I think Suning actually has the better level 1s. Top Esports is very risk averse in their level 1s. If you look at the Fnatic series, they did 5-man spreads the entire way through, and that is very exploitable. Number two, I think you can target the weak link, which has been Yu and Ja. If you are able to do what Fnatic did and put him on 0-3 start, you also make Jackie Love very ineffective.
Okay, that's a lot of info, which I'm sure my analysts will pick up from there. But so useful for going into this matchup. Thank you so much, Clement.
No problem. Great to be here.
Wow, fantastic insight there from Clement. And of course, your story can be as great as it is. Only one of the 2 players between Karsa and Sword Art will make it to the finals, and also only one of these teams will make it there. We got so much good information.
Yeah, I guess I'm done here. Thanks, Clement.
Yeah, actually, you guys are just done. No, first up, let's also maybe set the big picture for people who may not be as familiar with those 2 teams, FrostCurrent. Where do they come from in the LPL, and what are kind of their standings if you look at the regular standings in terms of what we can expect here in this best of 5?
So Top Esports, the #1 seed from the LPL, back-to-back finals for their domestic region. They did not win in spring. They lost to JDG. It went to all 5 games, but they did win in summer. Now, the big secret sauce that brought Top Esports together was first they acquired Knight, the golden left hand, the best mechanical mid laner in the LPL. Some people are saying the world. Then they acquired Karsa, one of the biggest off-season pickups of this year. And then finally, they got Jackie Love, and he was that secret sauce on top that helped even out their early game shot calling.
I really think Jackie Love's made this team what it is today. They look so good, and I think Jackie Love, I think he's just so confident on champion plays. The meta is so good for him, and wow, I think this team is just star-studded across the board.
Absolutely, and just last week we of course saw that even being down 2 games in the best of 5 in a quarterfinal does not faze them, pulling off the first reverse sweep in Worlds history. Clement already touched on it, and let's get deeper into that jungle matchup specifically. Such a marquee matchup. It can't get any better than this, but also a lot of differences in the styles between these two junglers, SOFM and Karsa.
I mean, you can look at the stats alone, right? You can just see it from the top stat. You can look at the damage dealt. SOFM's doing tons of damage, whereas Karsa is a lot lower on the damage. You look at the CS difference, you can see SOFM is power farming his way to victory, whereas Karsa is going for these kills. Just you can see from the kill assist squad, you know, Karsa is #1. SOFM's number 12, so you can see the difference in playstyle. SOFM's farming, Karsa's looking for these ganks, and I think if you look at the meta in general, it's carry jungle meta, and I think that it's very volatile. If you go for ganks on carry junglers and you fall behind, then you are really out of it. Whereas on the champions before in the LPL regular season, in the summer playoffs, you had champions like Set, Volibear, Trundle, so you could go for ganks, and if they didn't work, you'd still be fine.
That's why what both these guys do is so impressive, because they're both the masters at the different styles. You know, Karsa will go for those ganks, and like Kadriel is saying, if you don't execute on them, you fall so far behind because you're missing time that you could be creating your own lead. But because of how talented Top's laners are and how talented Karsa is, it makes it work. And then on the other side, you have the mad scientist himself and SOFM, Style of Me. He is the most efficient jungler in the world. He will manipulate EXP, he will always get a CS advantage, he will always get an EXP advantage, and if he's left to his own devices, suddenly he's 2-3 levels ahead of you and he can hard carry a game.
Yeah, and I think if you look at their summer playoffs performance against Top Esports, Sunning, they were playing things like Skarner in the jungle, right? So they were playing these tank kind of junglers. They couldn't really play for carry junglers because the meta hadn't evolved enough yet, whereas now I think the meta's evolved to the point where you can confidently say, carry jungle's where I need to be, and if SOFM can power farm and Karsa does match him on the carry junglers and doesn't get ahead, then it's going to be very difficult for him, but Karsa against Fnatic, he really showed up.
And this is the million-dollar question now when these teams clash, because as Kadriel is saying, it's a very different game this time around, so you just can't take the 3-0 that Top once had over Suning. Is the meta the perfect storm for the Vietnamese powerhouse of SOFM to finally rise to greatness, to go to a world final in his first appearance? Or is Top Esport just the future that Suning want to be? This super powerful Trident team, this fact that Top can choose when and where they're going to beat you. They'll beat you in the top lane, they'll beat you in the mid lane, they'll beat you in the jungle.
And SOFM was the first Vietnamese player to ever join the LPL. He was hitting Challenger in solo queue in Korea when he had 100 ping, so I think this guy has definitely got the mechanics.
He definitely does. As a bit more micro in terms of picks and bans, yesterday we did see a lot of Kindred as well, and it's popping up a lot as an answer to the meta junglers. Kadriel, how much of Kindred do you think we're going to see today?
I think SOFM is the Kindred person I'm looking at here. I mean, you saw Fnatic against Top, you saw Selfmade put it out 2 games in a row. He won both games. He was legendary one of those games, so he was really carrying the games, and I think Kindred's a good response to these dive comps, especially Top was throwing these comps like GP Jarvan with a Sylas against Orin to get these full engage comps, and then Fnatic just last pick a Kindred and say, well, come at us, dive my carries, I'll just press Kindred ult. So even if they didn't have flash, they could respond to the plays, and I think Kindred is fitting into this carry jungle playstyle really well. It scales super well. If you have a roaming support, you can get the stacks really easily, and then when it comes to 2 or 3 items, Kindred is one of the strongest junglers in the game.
And I also think it's perfect at answering or band-aiding the thing that Clement was talking about. The fact that Top are a really good counter-engaged team and that Suning are more pick-oriented. A champion like Kindred, because of Lamb's Respite and because of how powerful she is in prolonged team fights with multiple auto attacks, multiple dances of her arrows, means that like the team fight is never open as long as SOFM is alive.
Indeed, and I love that we see kind of the story of a rookie versus a seasoned veteran at the world stage kind of mirrored in every single one of these lanes, and maybe the most in the bot lane. Hwanfang up versus JackeyLove. As you said already, JackeyLove already has a world championship, and now he's chasing his second one, but Hwanfang is making heads turn with his play this world championship.
JackeyLove won a world championship in his rookie year. He could potentially take home 2 cups in 3 years. He finally came of age. It was basically an arms race of who was going to get his contract. Everyone knew that he was on the horizon. Okay, JackeyLove's going to be 17. We can finally sign him to a team. Invictus Gaming won out in the buying war. They had him on Invictus Gaming Youth and Young Glory. And Hwanfang was in a similar boat. He came through Invictus Gaming's youth program. He had a short stint on their sister team in Young Glory. He was now brought up by legendary support and Sword Art. And you can see the very clear trajectory of Hwanfang can be what JackeyLove is.
And look at his stats. I think this is one of the biggest clutch factors Top Esports have. And I think the reason the Top Esports struggled against Fnatic was because the amount of trades in bot. I wish there was a stat for trades per minute because Fnatic was really pushing them in, really trading heavily. So when JackeyLove tried to get to his 2 or 3 item spikes, it took him so long. So I just think that if he doesn't feel too much pressure in bot and he can scale really well, I think this is the man to look at in team fights.
Absolutely is. He was shredding Fnatic in those back half 3 games in the team fights. So let's get to predictions then. I know we have some tape of what already happened in the summer split, but the question for me is how much has Suning improved improved and what is their ceiling? What do you think is going to happen to the AK Joel?
I don't know. I've heard some rumors that Suning is the best LPL team in Scrim. So I think Suning's going to take it. They look so good. I'm going to say 3-2 because I think this could go to 5 games, but I'm an SOFM simp. Just like Ender.
Yes. My heart really wants Suning to win. I really, really want SOFM to just pop off. But my brain tells me that top esports have this one in the bag. I think that Suning rely too much on the knife's edge of outplaying team fights and very intense mechanical plays. And I think pound for pound talent-wise, top have more flexibility in that they can play tanks in the top lane. They have a better mid laner. That Knight is just mechanically superior to Angel as well as more experience. And the only place that it is actually just a clear advantage to Suning is actually in that support position. So maybe Sorda gets his anime arc. Maybe he gets to be the hero today and the difference maker. But I think top have way too many things going in their favor.
Sword Art Online.
All right, let's see what happens. We're primed for a fantastic best of 5, and with all of that in mind,